Okay, guys. I haven't made a video in a while, so I wanted to show you guys two-dimensional arrays. Um, so let me open up my screen sketch. Okay, here we go. So this is how I introduce. This is a document I use to introduce two-dimensional arrays. The way you kind of want to think about it is almost like. Um, I tell kids a like an Excel spreadsheet or some sort of table like I have here. Um, in this table, would each of these rows would represent a student. So like Jim, Jason, Jennifer, and Jackson. And this would be like test 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then in here you could store their scores. So I'll just I just tell kids populate them with numbers. Okay, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay, so now you've got your two-dimensional array. It doesn't have data in programming terms yet, but at least it's filled it in, and we've got kind of an idea of what this thing is going to look like. Okay, so right here, define your scores. So we've got a scores 2D array. So I'm going to say, and it's filled with integers. So I'm going to say int scores. Okay, now if we were working with a single dimension array, you'd have one of these openings and closing, but we have two. So I'm going to put my second one there, and I'm going to say equals. Sorry, that looks bad. That's a brace though. That equals new int, and it's got 4 rows and 5 columns. Okay, so this is row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3, but it's got 1, 2, 3, and 4 rows in it. We always start with rows first, okay, and then our columns are second. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's our 5th column. Okay. So I'm going to have to close this, move down, and the stuff on the screen will get erased. So you can go back and watch the movie and see how I define everything and work each problem, okay? So I'm going to close that. I'm going to move it down to this part, okay? And I'll do the screenshot again. All right, define and assign your scores 2D array with the numbers that you put in each box. So this was what the information I had above. That's erased now. So int and scores. Okay. In this one, I just created a 2D array with nothing in it. In this one, I'm actually defining it, and I'm going to assign stuff to it. So when we first start, so what you need to know is a 2D array is just array with multiple arrays in it. Okay. So you would say 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and then you would close the first array, okay, and then you've got your second row, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Close that, and then the next one, 9, 9, 9, 9, and 9. Okay, in your final row, you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay, and now to close this one, okay, this opens up the 2D array right there, and that one closes it. Okay, and then these ones open and close each new row. Okay. What is a score length? So you need to know about length. We talked about length when we created the original one. Now there's a difference here. Which length are we talking about? Well, in this case, when it looks like this, we are looking at our rows. Okay. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. That's our length. And the length minus 1 is 3. Okay. This is important here. This is really important because this is the last row. Because remember, we start at row 0, row 1, row 2, and row 3. Okay. So that's where this comes from. When you see it like this, what this is saying what is the length at, what is the length, how many columns are in row 0, row 1, row 2. Okay, so the length for these are 5. Okay, there are 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. And then if we did length minus 1, we would have 4. Okay, because we start off at 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and what is the index of the first element in the first row? What is the index of the first element in the first row of scores? So that's just scores. Okay, so in row 0, column 0, and that would be equivalent to 8. Okay, because that's the first element in row 0, column 0. Okay. All right. Again, I have to erase this. All right. Close this and move down. And it says, what is the index of the last element in the last row of scores? So, whoops, I need to back my sketch pad. So it'd be scores. Okay, and the last row is 3, and the last column is 4. Okay. And sorry for my handwriting. It's writing not with these the tablet and the electronic pencils, kind of weird. All right. Anyway, 8. It says, we're starting to get to some programming here. Assume that each row represents a student. Okay, I talked about that, and each column represents a quiz score. Determine the average score of the quizzes for the student in row 2. So, you know, I can't remember what I named that kid when I was up there, but you're basically going, hey, add up all the elements, add up all the columns in row 2, and divide them by the length in that, and you'll get an average. So I'm going to say int total equals 0, and I'll say int row equals 2, and I'll go for int call equals 0, and my column is less than my scores in my row dot length, and then I'm going to have to say column plus plus. Okay, I can open that, and then I'll say my total, because I need the total number of scores, right? That's going to be plus equal to the scores, scores at my row, which is always going to be 2, because it's hard-coded as 2 right here. Okay, and then I'll just say at row, and then call. Okay, and so what we're doing here is we're just doing a loop that goes through every single element in row 2. This is always 2 because row doesn't change anywhere, right? So column initially will be 0, then column will be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and that will all get added up into total, all right? And then right here I can just do, system dot out dot print ln. I can say my average, and then I can say plus total divided by my score in my row dot length. Okay, that's not too hard to understand. Okay, all you're doing is adding them up and dividing it by the number in there. Okay, it's pretty easy. All right, again, I gotta close this, move down on my screen. All right, 9. It says, assume that each row represents a student and each column represents a quiz score. Determine the average score of the quizzes for the quiz. So now instead of going across one of the rows and doing all of it, what we're going to do is go and check the average score for all the kids for column 3. Okay, so that's going to look just a little different. I'll say, we could do the same thing again. We could say int, maybe this time we call it quiz total, and that's equal to 0. And then I'll have, okay, this is where there'd be a couple different ways to do this, but what I could do is I'm going to say 4, and I'm going to say int row equals 0, and I'm going to say row, whatever row I'm in, is less than the scores dot length row plus plus. Okay, I'll have to try to write this one a little bit smaller. 4. Now, okay, so this will get us through each row, okay? Now, so we're in row 0. Is 0 less than the length? So the length is what, 3? So now we got to go into, once we're in our row that we're in, now we got to start looping through the columns that we're going to be in. So we'll say int call, and I'm going to set that equal to 0. And I'll say that the call is less than the scores in your specific row that you're in. Okay, dot length. And I'll do call plus plus. Okay, now I'll say if my call is equal to 3, okay, because remember we just want the scores from column 3, so if column equals 3, so it's actually going to skip these right here. And what you could do to make this easier is you could just assign call to 3. No, you got to do it like this. This is a good way to do it. We'll say quiz total plus equals scores at the row I'm in and at the column I'm at. Which really would just be 3 because it wouldn't even get in here unless this is true, correct? Okay, so then I can close that there. I can close this here. And then I can just, do the same thing. Now I've got my quiz total, so I can system.out.print and go, average plus my quiz total divided by my scores.length. Now I had to do scores.length this time because it's the rows I'm working with, right? I'm working with columns in here to add them all up, but there's 4 different students, I think. Yeah, there were 4 students, so this would be 4. So this would add all of them up and then divide it by 4. Okay. Close this one. All right. Add up all the scores in columns 0, 2, and 4. Okay, so we say int, we'll say call totals. Set that to 0. Okay, same thing. You'll notice a pattern here. We always do nested loops. We do a for loop where int row is equal to 0, row is less than our scores length, and we add up our row. Okay, it's going to go through and loop through each row, and then we do our column for int call equals 0, call is less than scores at my row dot length. Now this one's different because we want to just do at columns 0, 2, and 4. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say call plus equals 2. Okay, so once I'm done with my 0 column, I'll go to my 2 column, and then I'll go to my 4 column. All right, so here we'll just say, what is it, call totals plus equals scores, our scores at our row and our call. And we'll close this, and then we'll do our system.out.print, and that say call 0, 2, and 4 totals. And then we add in our call totals. Okay, so that added up everything. So we start off row 0. 0 is less than 4. So then we come in here, column 0, columns less than 5. So and row 0, column 0, we add those up. Then we go to, that gets bumped up to 2. 2 is less than 5. So now we're in row 0, column 2. Add those up. This gets set to 4. 4 is less than 5. Column 0, or row 0, column 4. That gets added up. This becomes 6. 6 is not less than 5. So we come back up here. now we're in row 1, column gets set back to 0, and we just do this over again. Okay. Let's do the next one. We got a few more. I actually really like two-dimensional arrays because they're, it's just kind of, it looks real difficult, but they're kind of fun to play around with. All right, 11 says add up all the scores in row 1 and row 3. So this is going to be kind of similar, only instead of adding, well, let's do it. 11 int, we'll say row totals. And we'll set that to 0, and we'll say for int row equals. This time we're going to start at 1 because we want to start at 1 and 3. We don't want row 0. So then we'll say row is less than scores.length. And we'll say row plus equals 2, right? Because 1 plus 2 is 3. So we'll add up this first one, and then we'll go to the next one. So we'll say for int call equals 0. Call is less than the scores at my row dot length, and we'll say column plus plus. So now we'll say row totals plus equals scores at my row and my column. Okay, and then we just do our system.out.print, and we'll say row 1 and 3 totals, and we'll say row totals. Okay, so we start off with row 1. 1 is less than 4. We come down here and then we add up all the columns in row 1. Okay, and when that ends, we come up here, add 2 to row. Row becomes 3. 3 is less than 4, and then we'll add up everything in row 3. Okay, those all get stored in row totals. Man, this pen's hard to write with, and we get something like that. Okay. All right, 2 more. All right, Sketchpad. Okay, use a nested for loop to find the sum of the values in scores 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. So these are diagonal values. Okay, so we'll say int diagonal, sorry about that, totals. Okay, we'll say for int row equals 0. We'll say row is less than or equal to scores dot length, and we'll do row plus plus. Notice how we only want to add up scores where their row and their column are equal. Okay, so for here I would just say for int column. If we want it to be equal, don't we just set it equal to our row? Okay. And then here's another part where we have to be savvy. We have to say the column is less than or equal to our row. So we only do it one time, and then we add 1 to it, and then it's going to be greater than that. So then it will get out of the loop. So this will be call plus plus. Okay, and here we'll just say diagonal totals plus equals scores, add our row, and add our column. System.out.print, and we say diagonal totals okay. And last one, what does it say? Display each element in the 2D array in reverse order. All right, so now this one's a little tricky. Okay, reverse order. We'll say 4. And in this one, we want to start off at the last row. Okay, so we'll have int row equals scores dot length minus 1, and we want our row to be greater than or equal to 0, and we can do row minus minus. Okay, so we start off in the last row. That will put us in the last one, and we then want to start off in the last column. So int call, and that would be equal to scores our row position dot length minus 1, and column also needs to be greater than or equal to 0. We'll do call minus minus. Okay, and all we're doing is just printing these, so you can print them in reverse order. It doesn't say how it wants it to look, so I just, dot out dot print, and say scores at whatever row we're at and whatever column we're at. All right, so that is a long video of a bunch of different 2D array problems. So that should be a good intro for you guys. Go ahead and watch this, and if you got any questions, shoot me an email. Have a good day. Bye.